And now back to Open Mic Friday with Mike Spence and Butter.
Welcome back, Open Mic Friday with Butter, and we've had Butter, and she's back in her room. Thanks, Scott, for putting up with that.
You bet. Oh, Butter's a great friend.
Yeah, she's something else. Before we left for the Butter break, we were talking about this interior live oak, and I'm not sure people can actually see. That's the one with the little spiky leaf, but it is also more of a bush than a large single tree.
Yeah, it can be a large tree, but this one is very often stump sprouted, and so it'll often have multiple trunks coming out, and also sometimes kind of shrubby, like you said.
And it stays that all year. But the reason I wanted to come back and talk a little bit more about this, number one, it's not poison oak, so I can look at it some more. I'm glad you didn't bring any of that.
Yeah, I tried not to.
But there are these little sections of the branch that have swelled up like a little balloon, almost like a little heart when you have that little thing they put in your heart, your blood vessels to pump up your heart. There are these swelled areas, and now you're telling me that the wasp actually lays their eggs into the branch.
Into the branch.
And if you look closely enough at these little swollen areas, you're not going to be able to see that on the camera, but you can see small holes where the wasp kind of entered in there, put the eggs in there, and then exited, throughout the branch.
Correct, yeah. So these are called stem gulls, and very similar to what we've been talking about, just another completely different wasp that does this, and the wasp will lay its eggs actually in the stem tissue. As a response to that, the plant creates this swelling, and inside that swelling, the eggs will actually hatch, the larvae will develop, they'll chew on the inside of that stem, and then they'll exit out of that little hole as a mature little flying insect.
I've never seen that.
And the reason I brought this sample is this last year seemed to be just a great year for stem galls, and so we got a lot of calls, because if you think about the plant, there's a fair amount of damage going on right there. And so often when you see these stem galls, many times the posterior part of the branch will often die, because there's a whole lot of disturbance there, the little insects in there chewing around all of that tissue. And so many times we'll get calls this time of the year with a lot of dieback. They'll say, the tips of all of our oak trees are dying, and we go out and look, and there's just a heavy infestation of stem galls. And nothing to be worried about. It's just the insect did really well this year, and often those little branches will die, they'll fall off, and then the tree will reflush the next year, and it'll be perfectly fine.
Now, as these trees grow, and we have the different types of oaks, I didn't see any black oak.
Yeah, I didn't bring black oak. Okay. So the other really common oak in this area, besides the three that we talked about, would be the black oak. It's another deciduous oak, and it has a tendency to grow at a little bit higher elevations. We start seeing black oak around 2,000 feet, and it goes up to about 4, sometimes even a little bit higher than that.
I'm at 3,400 feet, just we have tons of.
Yeah.
So the black oak, when you do it for the firewood, it's a little different because it's more hollow inside.
It's a little less dense, you could say.
Dense?
Yeah. It's still a hardwood, considered a hardwood tree, but maybe it's a little less dense than you'd think of, maybe like the blue oak or even the interior live oak.
You're looking at preserving the oak. I'm thinking about it in terms of
firewood. Keep them warm in the winter.
There is a difference between the black oak and the other, the live oak.
Yeah, and the black oak, very large leaves, lobed just like the valley oak that we looked at, but much larger leaves, very glossy green, and so very easy to identify once you've kind of seen it.
Right. Well, I know you have a beautiful farm on Highway 88 as you go up the highway.
Yeah.
I look at that farm every time and think, what's he growing out there? You had
it keeps us busy.
Sunflowers.
This year. We just love growing sunflowers.
It's giant, what are they? Mammoth Sunflowers, whatever they're called. They're just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to Kerry over at the farmer's market, and he says, "Oh yeah, Scott brings those sunflowers down here, and but you just do the Jackson market."
We just do the Jackson market.
That's why I haven't seen you up in Pine Grove.
This job keeps me pretty busy Monday through Friday and occasionally Saturday.
We want you up on Wednesdays up in Pine Grove. You need to move it around a little bit.
That's true.
And you bring those sunflowers down to the Jackson market. Yeah, that must bring them a lot of color. Those things are just amazing.
Yeah, we love growing sunflowers. They do really well for us. Easy to grow, no problems, pest problems, other than birds. Birds have a tendency to peck at them a little bit, but other than that, it's...
Yeah, well, they try. I get the
they're a lot of
rabbits,
fun.
and when they're small, I get all the animals are trying to get at the sunflowers.
Yeah.
But once they get established, they're
fine.
They do great.
Yeah, and they just make you smile. I mean,
Oh, they do. Yeah, what an amazing flower to watch
house,
grow.
and you just can't help but smile.
And all summer long, it's just people come up to visit, and they're looking at that big sunflower, and it's just so iconic. The area. It's a beautiful plant. We do a show. I have a co-host, Monique Grazaday, and we go out and everybody knows Monique. And we go out with butter, but we do a show called Visit Amador, and we go out and actually visit different places. Normally we go to wineries and do a little wine tasting. We're going to do a farm.
You're going to have to come to our farm
this year because we've been involved with the farmers market. And it's something that I'm very serious about promoting, and we're going to actually come out to the farms. And Monique's great. She can look at things and say, this is what, in terms of cooking with this and using that and making this, and she can actually look at different things that you're growing. So I'll take you up on that invitation.
Yes,
we're going to
official invite.
Come out in the next week or two while everything's still growing and green, and actually visit a few farms and actually take the cameras out there and see what it is that you're doing out there. Because
we would love to have you.
It's just an amazing thing. We talk about protecting and care and preservation, and when you actually see what it is that you're doing out there, you see how important it is, but you also see how much work it is.
Yeah, it's being a farmer is a lot of work. But
yours is the only farm I see on Highway 88.
I
think why aren't there farms?
80 years ago, there was a string of them all the way down the highway.
All the way up,
it says, that we go through the generations, people realize how much work it is. And
there aren't that many because it really does require a lot of work. But they're a model for sustainability and everything else. And your family must like you bringing over different things that you grow.
They do, At this time of the year, they're getting a little bit tired of squash.
Yeah, I bet they are. But you get the special Italian squash.
That is true. Yeah.
How can you be tired of that? The ability to use that land in the way that it was intended, and seeing those farms, it's going to be a really special thing, I think, for the viewers to go out and visit. You see everybody's goods at the farmers market, and you don't realize, what that does to cut down on our carbon footprint and everything else, and growing local, and we're trying to support that local thing, and shopping local and eating local, but it all comes back to the farm.
Yeah, and buying local, I can't stress it enough. I think if you go to the supermarket, I think people don't realize that the majority of the produce travels about 1,000 miles.
Yeah,
it's a long ways. So if you support local, whether it's within Amador County or within the 100-mile radius, whatever it is, or even if it's just California, it's really important to support local farmers.
Yeah, everything you can do. I'm having fun. The school at Argonaut High School each year has a little plant sale.
They have a great plant sale,
and I go up and I get all the heirloom tomatoes, and those things are just beautiful
you just can't
already.
Beat fresh produce.
And I picked a few off early, and they just ripened right in front of your eyes, and they're just beautiful. And you're just not going to get that sort of thing in the store. Why don't they sell heirloom tomatoes?
They're not well. It takes it. But the other thing is they don't ship well. They're extremely perishable. I mean, all the heirlooms and stuff that you find at farmers markets are extremely perishable. They don't have long shelf life, and so that's where the taste is really. So the stuff that's kind of been in industrial ag. That's they grow huge quantities and they do it. And they pick varieties that ship well, that store well, and unfortunately you do lose a little bit of the flavor characteristics in that. And, it's no fault to them. I mean, they're doing it because the marketplace demands produce being shipped thousands of miles, and so they need stuff that can last. But if you have stuff local and you want that flavor, that's where you're going to find it.
It's exactly what you should. The heirloom is the best tomato. We have the Italian tomatoes as well. That heirloom tomato,
you can't beat it.
They get mozzarella all the way from Italy.
Exactly.
Why can't you get a tomato across the country from one farm to the other? It's just something you have to grow at home, do it yourself, which I enjoyed doing. And the last minute we have, I'd like to just definitely discuss this University of California program that you have, and tell anybody that you whatever you can think of in terms of.
Sure. So we've got in talking about Oaks today, we've got a series of workshops coming up. 3 in August coming up. The first one is August 15th over in Placerville, and then we have one August 24th here in Jackson, and then August 29th down in Sonora.
And your website that they can go on to see that schedule?
Yeah, it's cecentralsierra.ucanr.edu.
Okay.
Or they can just Google search Central Sierra Cooperative Extension. You can find us.
Why don't you give it one more time?
Sure. cecentralsierra.ucanr.edu.
That'll get you there, and you'll be able to see the schedule for the University of California Agricultural and Natural Resource section.
They can come
Scott
learn about
Oneto,
oaks.
thanks so much, Farm Advisor.
Pleasure.
Boy, that was
Pleasure.
an informative talk.
Great.
Glad we had you on. Thanks
Great.
for coming.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.